Welcome in, guys. Welcome in. We'll get started shortly. Let's actually see what's going on. Of course, we got just memes going on in premium chat. Nice. All right. What's going on, Bulldog? Ba, ba, ba. They're trickling in. Oh, I want to see us tank so bad. Let me actually get off my volume bars. Just leave the chart. Welcome in, guys. Welcome in. I know I'm gonna look at IRNT. Don't worry. I'll get there. I haven't looked at that ticker at all. Let me see. TSCO. Let me take a look at it real quick. Tractor supply. Wow. It's actually holding pretty well. Let me see. You have a little bit of an inside bar right here on the daily. So either we're gonna end up breaking out for new highs, or we're gonna end up seeing it break down. If you do end up seeing it break down, I'm looking at support right around near the 199 mark. So we'll see if that ends up breaking out to the upside, fresh new high, or if we end up breaking down, and then 199 would be that support there for tractor supply, right? Um, let's begin pretty much looking at futures. Picking up where we left off yesterday, guys. I pretty much stressed it on futures on this ascending channel that the next bar today was pretty much going to tell the story, right? And basically what we did is that we ended up creating that bar that ended up breaking down this ascending channel. And so now is where the fun begins. Because now it's either that we end up gapping down to my support levels around 441 on SPY. Either we can end up getting down to that level where we gap down tonight by morning, or we end up retesting the prior support as resistance now, right around to that 446 level, and then we end up flushing at open tomorrow, right? So that retest is really what's going to be the important part. Do we get down to that support level first and then retest the channel, or do we end up testing the channel now by morning, which we pretty much have what I think it's been 3 days in a row where we had an overnight gap up, and that's really been the theme of that overnight. So do we get a fourth gap up overnight where we retest the channel and then flush, or do we just go straight to support overnight here? Which looking at futures right now, tech is really pushing us. So I would expect us to actually retest now by morning, which will probably end up getting close enough to that 446 level on SPY, and then we'll end up flushing out. So that's pretty much falls in line with me holding my CRM call. We'll see what it does by morning. Kind of getting in real quick to the small account, give a quick update on that, and a few others. Um, actually, if you saw today, Yopan actually kind of ended his small account, and that's the thing with having such small capital in reality. One bad play, especially one expensive contract, when you're playing names like Amazon, like Tesla, like Google, those names that have expensive contracts like that, when you're going in and you're playing contracts that are pretty much over, like I want to say $600. You could say even $500 for a single contract, and that ends up being a swing play, and you lose about what 40-50% of that. Now you're already looking at a small reserve in your capital when you're playing with only $1,000, and that's basically what happened. He had a nice run up to 1600. He played it pretty well with a lot of bear plays that he had, and that $1,500 contract is really what cost him. Now, had he done a smaller size contract, it would have benefited him. But of course, you're playing names like Tesla and Amazon, data's going to hurt you. And that's pretty much what actually happened with my upstart position. I didn't really say how low my account went to, but I was hovering just around where Yopan actually closed his account. I was hovering around $800 before we actually got that flush on Upstart. If I actually pull up Upstart's chart real quickly, I was I knew that the actual chart was gonna play out, but what happened is that my 260 put was really just killing me. It was kicking my ass pretty much because it was out of the money. And when you see stocks that actually move on like $5 increments, and you probably heard me on live today, like it was a random $5 spike on Upstart at some point in the day, and I'm like, why the hell is there a $5 spike just so you can come crashing back down? But that actually was killing the premium on the contracts, and that's what would have actually happened with Yopan if he actually got a cheaper contract with Amazon. Even though it wouldn't have hurt him as much, but theta would have pretty much impacted him, so he was trying to avoid that in that sense. But Upstart actually saved my account. I was hovering around $800, so that pushed me up to about 1100, where I actually closed out the position. I didn't want to get caught in this little bounce right here where you saw. I closed out right around I think my last contract was just pushing into 264, and I didn't want to get caught in this bounce because then, of course, that's when theta would have actually hit me again. So I closed that out to hold my account over $1,000. So we're sitting roughly around 1100 on the small account. And then the play that I took on CRM was pretty much a newsletter play. Let me pull it out to the daily because that's the best time frame. Big picture. I actually had it on the newsletter where I was actually expecting us to hold this level right around that 256, 257 level. That didn't hold. I'm a little bit more confident holding here, although 252 would be that floor for me if it ends up breaking down and we get an early flush. But I'm pretty confident on this one. My contracts were about $200 a piece. So if you took it, yeah, it's a $200 risk compared to if you followed a play like Yopan, that was $1,500 a contract. That's the big difference in that. But I am holding three, so roughly around $600 on those contracts. And then I didn't sell the Disney put that I had. I think it was like a 180 put I got, if I'm not mistaken, and it cost like 60 something bucks. I wasn't gonna actually waste a day trade on that for 60 something dollars. There's probably going to be a better play tomorrow, and we'll look out for that. Probably a day trade opportunity tomorrow. So I didn't want to waste that on a 60 something dollar value contract. Other than that, I think that's it for the small account. I mean, the good thing is that we're back over $1,000, and that's pretty much the important part of that. If I would have stayed under $800 and Upstart could have kept eating my data out, and that wouldn't have been bad. That would have been bad for pretty much everyone. Obviously I probably would have restarted though. Yopan has amazing plays though. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Yopan has amazing plays. All of his plays pretty much have been bangers. It's just that yeah, when you're playing with such limited capital, it's not that you can go and double down pretty much, or you can actually, exit and have that capital in your reserve to make up that loss. That's really the problem when you're playing with only $1,000. So if he had more money, if it was like maybe a 2,000 up to say 5,000 anywhere between there, and he lost on that $1,500 contract, he would have been able to, have that cash in his reserve to make up that loss. But now it's just more of a challenge where you're just playing with hundreds, trying to make up X amount of dollars. So that's when it gets more difficult. Back to the market though. I know I was gonna look at IRNT. I kind of want to look at that real quick. I know that Tamakaze actually is holding shares on this. I thought about buying it. It was down about $2, if I'm not mistaken, after hours. And I'm just gonna call out Izzy because she actually saw this stock at $10 and she didn't buy it. So I don't know what was going through her head at that moment, but I just wanted to call her out for that. But it looks like a nice rounding bottom here that is creating. Is this a squeeze potential? It has that. Let me see the resistance level that we actually need to break here. Let's see. I want to say it's right around this level here. See what the level I particularly like. I want to say this level will be what I particularly like. So right around that level of 2640 is where I would want to see this break. And then we'll see what the squeeze potential is, how the volume looks at that point in time. And then who knows how this actually looks. I think it actually has a better potential than SPRT had. Obviously, that was a little bit more news based when we had that initial pump like this one does, and then we just faded out entirely because it was pretty much all news. This one looks like it's a little bit more of a momentum play, but we'll actually see if that momentum's there once it crosses that level of that 2640. Then we'll see if that momentum is still there, the volume is still there. But other than that, it looks amazing. Again, that 2640 level is pretty much what I'll keep an eye on tomorrow morning. Possibly we see a nice little gap up, continuation from that after hours action. But yeah, it was down about $2. That was a beautiful dip buy opportunity to get into shares after hours, which I think Tamakaze actually got in after hours, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see how that does tomorrow morning. If it gets over that 26, I think it's worth a look. I would try to say stay away from weeklies on it. Of course, that's always up to you. I think with these short squeeze plays, though, we've seen that a lot of them actually died out today. So there's not really much short squeeze plays to really go over today. So when they die and they actually will hurt you. So my preference would say to be buy shares. That would be my preference. Um, but again, totally up to you. Other than that, let's take a look at some of the action that actually happened today. Let's take a look at some major flow, and then we'll see what other tickers we take a look at. Let's see where we started off the day at. Let's see. All right, beautiful. So we started off the day with a Tesla bearish, level 4. Pretty much that was bears just betting on the downside of the market. So they were actually betting on Tesla falling. As you see, they actually went out to October. There's a lot of puts out for October 8th and, if I'm not mistaken, October 15th expiration. So that kind of explained that. As you saw, it kind of shot right out the gate on that initial spike on Tesla this morning. So you definitely wouldn't have actually paid attention to this. But that was, and the date actually, the expiration date pretty much told the story of October. So you wouldn't really have paid attention to that. I know the Apple Rapids came out this morning. That was a nice scalp this morning. You could have got a nice 5 to 10% this morning. What's going on, G? So that was a nice scalp. You would have got a nice 5 to 10% out of that. I did mention on live also that um, Apple was pretty much going to sell off on the event. So I did mention that to everyone. I typically buy, I want to say after, maybe about 5 minutes into the event. But that was a beautiful one where it just pretty much died. One second, guys. My bad. Forgot to do something. Um, Appreciate that, Darian. I don't know if you're listening to me or not. But other than that, yeah, I mentioned that Apple was gonna sell off. That was pretty much the big thing about that. We were pretty much preaching that that's like pretty much a constant event. That every time we see that happening, it's usually every time it starts, it's usually gonna sell off. And it actually started around lunchtime, actually before the event, around 12 o'clock. And I think we were pretty much all over that. I believe Dapper was mentioning it about it. So we were pretty much giving you that heads up, but we warned you ahead of time it was going to sell off in the event, and that's basically what happened on that. But those rapids had a nice chance for 5-10% in the morning. Let's see, Tesla level 3, they were targeting 749. That was actually a very key level this morning. And I mentioned that as well because I know that Dan actually took a position. He got a nice little scalp up to 750 calls, if I'm not mistaken. And I actually mentioned, Tesla was trading between that range after that first initial morning spike. I mentioned that Tesla was trading between the range of 745 to 750. And, either it was going to break to the upside to 750, and we're going to see a nice continuation to the high of the day. Or if it breaks below 745, I think I called it a specific number, 744 and change, and it actually ended up breaking that level, and that's when it flushed and we saw it go down red, like -$4. But and then I mentioned in Power Hour, and I was driving home, right into Power Hour, and I was mentioning that it was actually holding up pretty well. That was the surprising part about that. It was holding up very well, and Avery was actually posting about it in his premium small account challenge, and he was actually looking at the chart, and he has a bullish case on that. If you guys see his chart, I agree with him. I am bullish on Tesla. The fact that the market was selling off as it did into the close and Tesla was holding up so well, that's where you see relative strength compared to the weakness in the other tech stocks, basically. Moving on, BCS, not really no big name here that I'm too familiar with. $10 stock. Looks like it was hitting about resistance here, so not too much of a big thing there. Rapid. I know that Adder actually sold off. I mentioned it yesterday on live, if I'm not mistaken. I think the $20 mark was what I was pretty much mentioning about Adder. It actually sold off pretty hard, and I think that those that actually got squeezed out of it, they ended up selling. They ended up trying to actually dip their feet back into the water, thinking that the squeeze was still in play. And as you see, they pretty much bought out for 917. Those are weeklies actually. They bought those, but it didn't really do anything. I think you got barely a bounce out of Adder if I actually look at the chart. Yeah, you barely got you probably got a small bounce. Let me see what time that actually came out. 10:07 is when that popped out. Yeah, let me see. Probably around 10:07. Let's see what candle that is. So you're right around this candle. You probably got a small move out of that. It wasn't much to breathe out of, but I think, the buyers were there. They actually thought it was going to push back up. It was going to squeeze. It ended up fading out completely. So you probably would have got in there. Maybe your stop loss would have hit if you ended up pushing in there. But that wasn't one that was particularly too nice. I know Tamakaze was probably smiling at that, but it is what it is. Level 3 bullish. We were pretty much bullish on Apple up until about 12 o'clock. So that actually ended up making sense about the bullish play. And those are weekly. So they played up until 12 o'clock. You got that momentum, and then it ended up dying out. I know that there was strong plays on AMD actually. AMD had some strong flow coming through. I contemplated taking a position on AMD, but I didn't. Let's see, Baba. I mean, why would Baba actually even be here? But yeah, pretty much goes with sentiment wise. Baba's actually bearish sentiment wise, so that actually follows through with that level three. I think I mentioned it on live, maybe yesterday, possibly. I mean, my target on Baba is pretty much 150. I want to see 150 hold, and then I'll decide at that point in time, long-term decision if I want to take shares or maybe leaps on that. But Baba's not a name that I want to look at right now. Let's see, AFR RAM. I saw some nice buyers there. I know that it was filling the gap down. That was the concern. If you see that little small gap there, that was the major concern. But I know that they want to push it back up to resistance. So we saw those dip buyers stepping in there for 115s. Going out to October though, in this type of environment, I don't know about that. So I would have been a little skeptic on getting a position there. Those level threes hit. I think that was probably when it actually just about, pulled back on that morning spike, which, if I'm not mistaken, Tesla actually pulled back. Let's see what the high of the day was. 754. Yeah, right around that time. You probably got in it was triggering right around here around that 748 mark is when it was triggering. Um, but yeah, that would have played out, been a nice scalp for that case. As you see, again, those are Octobers though. So they're betting on the bear case for now until October. For the market to pretty much tank with pretty much individual tech stocks. So the date is pretty much something you definitely want to keep an eye out because a lot of times it's maybe a longer term bet. Apple calls again, of course. I don't know why they would do that at 12 o'clock because that's actually when it started dropping. Uh, and they bought, yeah, those are weeklies. That's really interesting. But that's pretty much the flow that I actually hit today. I did want to look at the long term because there was actually some interesting ones that came out today. The Facebook and the Tesla ones were pretty interesting. Now, the Facebook ones I did mention on live, the 380 weeklies that were coming out. Why they bought this? Let's see, the expiration. They bought it for 2022. Now, I mean, you're buying the top of Facebook when the market's about to melt down. I wasn't too sure about that. But if you heard on live, I mentioned weeklies and they bought those 380s. I don't know if that's maybe some type of scalp that they're trying to do. But to buy weeklies at the top of Facebook here, I'm not too certain about that. I mean, the ascending channel is still intact, so maybe that's what they're thinking. But I don't know how that survives. That's a big question mark there. And then the Tesla, they pretty much bought 2023s. For what reason? For $1,000 strike? I don't know what the logic is there. But when you're buying these things, I mean, of course, you're buying them for to forget about it. So this type of play here on Tesla, I can understand it if you're buying for 2023. What, you have about a 2 years on this contract here that they're buying. So it's understandable that they're buying out that far. I mean, in this position, would I want to buy here? I would wait for the market correction to actually happen, but I can understand when you're buying long term, you're buying long term. You're not thinking about the next 6 to 12 months. So that's understandable, from that aspect. Other than that, I think that pretty much covers all the algos that went off today. Looking at, let's see if we look at mega cap tech stocks, see what the action was. As we see, Google was pretty flat, up only $4 on the day. Apple was being Apple. I actually posted a chart on Twitter yesterday, actually, which was funny. It was a double bottom here that was playing out. If anyone saw that on my Twitter, and I think I had a target somewhere right around this ballpark, around that 148 mark. If I'm not, no, take that back. I probably have to go out larger because that's actually the last action that happened. It was actually right around here where it wicked off. Yeah, this is the double bottom right here. We had a double bottom at 149.05 and 149.07. So that's pretty much your double bottom right there. And I ended up having it wicking off. I actually expected to hit right around that low 150 mark. Ended up spiking right into, what's the high there? 151.07. So that was one. If you pay attention to my Twitter post, you would have saw that I was expecting that little pop, and we got that in the morning before it ended up pulling back. Other than that, Microsoft was a beautiful one today. If we actually saw the after hours news, that was that played out pretty beautifully. And I know that there was actually an alert that went off. It's somewhere that it went off. It might have been yesterday. I'll probably post it in premium if you guys want to see it, or in trading chat. I know that there was an alert and they were saying, the algos pretty much knew it about Microsoft and their buyback of shares. And I think they're also increasing their dividend as well today that they announced. So that was a beautiful play. It was a beautiful gap up. Of course, now we do have this gap below that's going to be in play. And I was actually looking at a potential head and shoulders, probably see it a little bit better on the 5 minute here. You had a little bit of a head and shoulder action here. This left shoulder right here, the head, right shoulder, and that pretty much played out. But then I was actually looking at a larger head and shoulders. Let's see if I can actually plot it out here. And I'm not sure why that's pushing there. All right, there we go. Normal. And this left shoulder right here. That's pretty much what I was watching into close today. I thought about getting a put. I'm actually glad I didn't because that news actually pushed the stock up after hours. So that I was watching that with that gap filled below. But I think it's going to be in play. I don't think that Microsoft is really going to hold up here. Come morning. So we'll see how that plays. That may be a day trade that I'm going to look at tomorrow. So that's definitely going to be on my watch list. So stay tuned for that on Twitter. You'll see the watch list in the morning. Let's see what else there is. What other names? Amazon, of course. Amazon's just in a range. I do had resistance right here. My resistance was right around, let's see, 34.55 was that resistance level that I was watching on Amazon. We'll see if it gaps up to that range. And well, actually, yeah, that would be $100 move actually. No, yeah, no, wait, 34.55. It's about a $5 move because I'm on the 5 minute. My bad. But yeah, 34.55. We'll see if we probably get a small gap up, and then it'll probably break down come morning time. Facebook, again, I was actually watching this. The channel's still intact. I think I actually showed this on yesterday as well. I'm still watching for this channel to break down. I'm literally waiting for this one. Once it breaks that support, I will likely be in puts right away. Those 380 weeklies that I saw that were above ask today on flow, I actually kind of got a little worried about that, so that's why I didn't get into it. I thought about 380 weeklies before close on the small account. It was an option, but I didn't want to get caught in Nasdaq dropping by morning because of this downtrend that we're still in. Remember, we're still in a bear sentiment overall, so I don't want to get caught in that. And especially, those contracts are not necessarily too cheap, so I didn't want to get into that play. But I'm definitely here for it tomorrow if it ends up breaking that support level. I actually do think that we're going to see close enough to a gap up to 380, and then we'll see it fade down. So I'll keep an eye on that tomorrow. Netflix, I believe Julian was all over Netflix today. He was calling out, that drop today. It was a steady decline all day today, for the most part. If I probably look at the 5 hour, you'll probably see it a little bit better there. Yeah, it had beautiful descending. Looks like a little bit of a wedge here now. I think this is one of the plays also that Yopan actually had that didn't do so hot. He ended up getting calls and it ended up gapping right down. So that wasn't too beautiful. But I know that Julian was calling this out pretty much all day. It was a beautiful, pretty much wedge going all the way down as it kept chopping. Let's see what other names. Thoughts on QQQ? We're in a downtrend right now. Let me see if my Nasdaq chart. I don't think I updated my Nasdaq chart, but it looks like I think it's still intact for the most part. So pretty much here's a Nasdaq chart. We ended up having a sideways channel. We broke the channel. That was on Friday. We ended up retesting yesterday. That was a retest. We had again that overnight gap. That's how we ended up popping. We had lower lows. That's pretty much been the theme. Lower highs, lower lows. We ended up retesting again for the second time to the channel. So now we're likely gonna see either we're gonna end up probably chopping around this area in this zone between this resistance now. And then once the little gap up of the retest on futures actually ends, then that's when I think that we're going to end up seeing the decline in NASDAQ and we'll probably get back down to the support of the broadening descending wedge, right? So, pretty much big picture, yeah, we're still in a bear sentiment, but the fact that futures are pretty much, in a retest mode, I think at this point, whether that be tonight or tomorrow morning, will be the big storyline. That retest right there was really gonna tell the story. I think that we're gonna end up getting a little bit down. We'll probably get a nice little gap down, then we'll retest up there. That's what I'm waiting for, and we'll probably end up shorting tomorrow morning for a nice day trade. What stock that may be, we'll see by morning. Of course, Microsoft and Facebook are probably at the top of my list right there. Once this ends up retesting, and then we'll see Nasdaq follow that with a decline. Let's see what other names. BX in a giant breakout. I know. Speaking of BX with banks actually. I mentioned banks on live yesterday that they look good. I mentioned it again today, but it was kind of a fake out. Um, mm, I mean BX looks fine. I mean, would I want to enter here at all-time highs here? No, not particularly. I'm not too fond of entering at all-time highs. I would rather see some kind of pullback or, coming back down to support. That's more so what I like to see. If I were to look at the support level, and that actually didn't want that to trigger so fast, but it did. Let's see a nice little support level here that we have. This will be the support level that I'll be watching. So right around that 126.50 level would be where I would actually look for this to pull back. If it ends up holding that support again, then that would probably be where you would want to take calls. If it breaks that support, then it's gonna get ugly. But yeah, Banks did a horrible fake out today. I know Avery got caught in that fake out today, but then Moderna actually made up for it. Um, Google has a nice little wedge going on. I think it's gonna end up retesting this resistance by morning. Which that level will probably be right around 28.75, close enough to that ballpark number. And then we'll see if it ends up breaking that resistance, depending how much it ends up gapping up, or we end up rejecting that resistance level and then we come down. And big picture wise, you do have a large channel here where you are due to actually test support on Google. So am I bearish overall on Google? Yes. Could we have a nice little gap up for that little channel right there? Yes. But I would be very careful with Google. Other than that, I know that Moderna was a beautiful play today. If you actually heard Avery talking about that, it was on the morning. It was actually on my morning watch list, but Avery was the one calling it, play by play this morning. He had a beautiful move on that. Let's see if we could take a look at it. Let's see what it looks like right now, actually, as well. And here's the bad part. about Moderna right now is that, and I think I mentioned this to Dapper, it actually made a horrible Head and Shoulders. So that's another one that may be on watch for puts tomorrow. I'll probably see how I outline this Head and Shoulders here, but it's not looking too hot right now. That's a horrible Head and Shoulders right now that we're watching. So I would definitely keep that on watch tomorrow for puts. That'll be a beautiful one. If it ends up breaking that neckline, I'll be here for it tomorrow, and I'll be in puts. Again, this is kind of one like how Yopan actually took. Contracts are not cheap here, so remember to keep that in mind. If it is possible, try and get spreads. That will be my best bet for you. Knowing the directional move that it is, a bearish play, you're probably gonna likely see some follow through out of this. So try and do a spread. I mean, if you want to spread, probably message me in premium chat probably tomorrow morning. I'll see if I can look at it. And I'll probably give you a spread idea. So if this ends up breaking that neckline, I wouldn't mind even getting in here early. Um, Probably below this level of 423.95-ish will be the level I would look to try and get into puts here. And then write it down. Even if I get to the neckline, that might be a nice scalp to that 418 level. You're looking at what, maybe about from 424 to 418 on that neckline. You're looking about a $6 move there. But again, if you're trying to avoid those high premium contracts, then definitely a spread will be the play. But this is one to keep an eye on. And if you notice, there's a lot of bear plays. A lot of the tech stocks look like bear plays. Moderna looks like a bear play. So, do we see a small gap up by morning? Highly likely. And then we see a nice little gap down. Other than that, I think that kind of wraps up tonight. All the algos, mega cap tech stocks. Again, we know that daily candle on futures was pretty much the story of the day for me. That kind of pretty much told the entire story of whether we were actually going to push higher or if we were going to start to break down. I think here's the point where now, yeah, we're pretty much right into bear territory right now, where we broke that uptrend for that matter. We didn't hold the support on this ascending channel to possibly make another push on SPY higher to 450 all-time highs, whatever be the case. That's pretty much out of the picture for the moment. We broke that uptrend, so now we're in bear territory officially at this moment, right? Other than that, I think that kind of wraps up tonight, guys. We'll see what the morning brings. Probably a nice little gap up by morning. Nasdaq is pretty much holding us up for the most part, so we'll see what happens there. I think other than that, that kind of wraps up tonight, guys. Hope you guys have a good night then. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. We'll see what the small account does tomorrow. Hopefully I try and get someone to replace Yopan. And we'll see where we go from there. All right, guys.